Today we are finally digging into the Sovryn ecosystem and specifically the Zero Protocol, which lets you borrow against your Bitcoin in a trustless fashion at 0% interest with no KYC. Could it be true? Today we find out. Let's jump in. So as promised, this is the follow-up to my last video where I went through at a more conceptual level behind the Sovryn Dollar, DLLR. This is this sort of meta stablecoin comprised of constituent Bitcoin-backed stablecoins. So I would invite you to check that video out, which also references even further back the overall ecosystem overview I did about Sovryn and the rootstock sidechain to Bitcoin that it all rests on. So that is some foundational material for today. Today we're going to focus on a hands-on tutorial and we are going to be digging into the process. We're going to be looking at how to get set up with a compatible wallet for the Sovryn ecosystem. We're going to be talking about how to get RBTC or Bitcoin pegged into the rootstock sidechain. And then we're going to be talking about how we can use that as collateral to borrow against our Bitcoin without any KYC, without any credit check, and with no interest. Now, as we will see and as we will discuss, this is not without risks. There are many, in fact. And so we'll talk about and highlight those along the way, but I will also link Sovryn's excellent wiki documentation in the description down below that you can take a look at and make sure you are well aware of things. And so I'm excited to check this out. Again, you really do need sound finance to accompany sound money. Bitcoin is fantastic. Bitcoin is a store of value. Bitcoin as a medium of exchange via things like the Lightning Network. All of that is terrific, but you need the additional financial scaffolding, the ability to borrow against an asset, the ability to earn a yield on capital, the ability to borrow and lend. All of these things you have to have in any sort of sophisticated economy. I really like how Sovryn has approached this, both their foundational technology that they're using, i.e. the RSK sidechain, which I think makes a lot of really good trade-offs. And then as we will see, it is also an incredibly feature-rich DeFi ecosystem. And that term has been really quite ruined with all the rugs and all this and that and all the speculative altcoins flying around. But I think what you'll see today is DeFi done right. Maybe we call it BitFi, Bitcoin finance. Anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the meat for today. All right, so really what we're going to be doing is essentially following the instructions nicely laid out in their wiki. You can go to wiki.sovryn.com. I will link this in the description down below, and we're going to go through the Zero Protocol. So again, as discussed in the last video, Zero is a decentralized protocol that enables you to borrow the dollar stablecoin, which is an aggregation of various Bitcoin-backed stablecoins. And so we are going to walk through the process today. So the very first step is to connect and fund a wallet. And to do that, we're going to come over to some of the different options that you have. You have things like MetaMask. This is probably the most popular one that folks will use. There's also a Brave wallet, which is specific to the Brave browser. You can also set up a hardware wallet. So they have integrations with Trezor and Ledger. So Trezor might be a good option in this case if you would like to link it to a hardware device. For our purposes today, we are going to be using MetaMask. And so what we're going to do is come down and go to the MetaMask website. So we're going to go ahead and hit download, and we are going to grab MetaMask for, in our case, Chrome. I know, not particularly great for privacy purposes, but we're going to go for it. And we're going to go ahead and add this to Chrome, and we will add the extension. So once we do that, we get to this page. Let's get started. MetaMask secure wallet, making the world of Web3 accessible to all. You do have to agree to the terms of use, and there are many. So it sort of is what it is. I dislike that it is on a consensus website, but it is what it is. For today's purpose, we're really doing this as a demonstration. If I were to be playing around with more serious funds, I would probably be linking that to my Trezor. Let's go ahead and say we agree. And we're going to create a new wallet. You can import an existing one if you have one, but let's go ahead and create a new wallet. I will certainly be saying no thanks to this. And so now we are going to be creating a password for our MetaMask wallet. So we'll go ahead and put in a password. And keep in mind, this is local on your device, right? MetaMask does not know this password, so they are not going to help you if you lose it. So do not lose the password. And we'll go ahead and create a new wallet. And then it presents this little video to recommend that you take down your secret recovery phrase or your seed phrase. And so we are definitely going to write this down as we would with any other seed phrase. We're going to write it down securely in a place where we will not lose it and where no one else can gain access to it. Do not ever, ever, ever share this, even if you are playing around with not a lot of funds in this. So we're gonna go ahead and hit secure my wallet and we'll write down our seed phrase and be right back. Okay, so we have successfully created our wallet, and once again, remember that MetaMask can't help you recover any of this. Never share it. Okay, great, we got it. And so our install is complete. We'll go ahead and hit next, and that is how we can access it. Now it gives us a little pop-up, what's new, you can do security alerts, whatever. So by default, we are on the Ethereum mainnet. We do not want to be on this, so we are going to change it. We are going to say add network, and we are going to hit add a network manually. So the network name is going to be RSK mainnet. The new RPC URL, this is basically the node we're connecting to have information about the network. Chain ID is 30. The currency symbol is RBTC. Right? And you could see it kind of had some text that says, hey, you know, the node is telling something different. So it will sort of help you out. And then we want the block explorer URL. That's optional, but we can go ahead and put it in as follows. So this is how you should have this network configured. We'll go ahead and hit save, and we have added that successfully. So there we go. So we've got our RBTC balance, of course, empty as of now. And so we're ready for the next step. Basically, we need to get ourselves some RBTC because this is what will be used for the fees and for the collateral for our loan that we take out through the Zero Protocol. So step one, we've got ourselves a wallet. Step two, we are going to get some RBTC. There are a number of ways we can do this, as we can see in this wiki page as well. Today, we are going to use the Fast BTC Relay, which is a bi-directional exchange to basically exchange BTC for RBTC and vice versa. Now, do be advised, this is what's called a federated swap protocol, meaning you are going to trust the federation briefly, but the upside is that this is a much faster method to doing all of this versus you could also do this through the actual POW peg. Like this is the actual two-way peg connected to the root stock sidechain. And you can go and say, try the app now. The challenge with this is that it takes a lot longer. This is certainly the most secure and low cost way to do this. So using this two-way peg app provided by Rootstock here, but it will take a lot longer. I think it's estimated to be like 17 hours to do a peg in and 34 hours to do a peg out. So again, great option to have, but for my purposes today, I will be using the faster option, which is Fast BTC. And as you can see, in terms of what it takes to do this, you'll have a transaction that needs to get confirmed in a Bitcoin block, and then you need 3 Rootstock blocks, or about a minute and a half. So RSK blocks are every 33 seconds roughly. And we can also see some of the kind of minimums, maximums, and the context around the fees. Be advised as well that Fast BTC does not support Taproot addresses just yet, but other script types are supported. So we're gonna come over to the app. And it says, caution, no, really. Sovryn is a decentralized Bitcoin trading and lending platform, first of its kind. Only you control and have access to your wealth. Any actions you take could cause a potential loss of funds. So be careful, be thoughtful. And so we can say, I have read and understand, and I am responsible for my own outcomes. So we are now officially in the Sovryn app. This is the dApp for Sovryn, and we can come up and hit connect wallet, and it will give us the couple of different options. So either a hardware device that we might have, or in our case, we are going to select browser, and we have got MetaMask as we just did. And so you'll get a pop-up that looks like this, and it says, do you want to connect to the Sovryn app? And we say, yes, we do. Next. And connect. And there we go. So you can now see this little identifier that indicates I have connected my wallet to the Sovryn app. And so from here, let's go to portfolio. So this is what's going to show us our portfolio of assets. And all we simply need to do is hit receive. So it says receive RBTC to your connected address in the RSK network. Now you can see that there are two options. You can send Bitcoin, which is what we'll be doing, but you can also use a service called Transact, which will provide a bit of a fiat on-ramp there to allow you to get RBTC. So that is, I suppose, a helpful starting point if you maybe don't have Bitcoin yet. But let's go ahead and hit Bitcoin network. And so as we can see those min and max details, the fee details, and the instructions. Do not transfer any asset other than BTC. Do not transfer less than the minimum amount. Do not transfer more than the max. Allow up to 1.5 hours to process. And if it takes longer than that, you can contact them. So we are going to go ahead and generate an address. And so I guess this is a step in the process. They have verified that the federator nodes, there's nothing crazy going on with them. So we can go ahead and continue. And we now have our address. So this is where we need to send the Bitcoin to. Okay, so I'm going to copy this address and I'm going to come over to my Bitcoin wallet in my Umbral node, but it can be anything, right? It can be whatever Bitcoin wallet you have Bitcoin in. And so I am going to withdraw, and let's do something like 350,000 sats. It's a little over $100 worth, and we'll go ahead and paste in the address. And so fees are definitely still elevated. We can see that as reflected in this little bit from the mempool. I'm actually even more aggressive just for the purposes of doing this tutorial. Expensive, but what are you going to do? We're going to go ahead and pay it for today. Review withdrawal, and here we go. So there we go. We have withdrawn the sats. And as we can see, the transaction is processing. It has recognized that we have broadcasted the transaction, and it is waiting to close in the memory pool. And we can see that reflected here. So let's go ahead and give this some time to process, and we will be right back once the transaction is completed. All right, so we have got the transaction completed. We can go back to our portfolio, and lo and behold, we can see the RBTC that we now have. So we are armed and ready to go. We've got funds in our wallet. All right, and so now what we're gonna do, we're gonna come to this menu. I think this is slightly different, so don't get confused here, but we're gonna go to this little menu in the top left, and we're going to go to this borrow option. And so we should see something like the following, right? We are now in the Zero Protocol sort of overview, and we can get a number of statistics right from this view. We can see the number of lines of credit. So there's 169 lines of credit open on the protocol for a total of about 776 Bitcoin. See the amount of ZUSD, which, as we discussed in the last video, is one of the Bitcoin-backed stable coins that is sort of a constituent into the dollar, the Sovryn dollar stable coin. And so on and so forth. And so we can see the collateral ratios of some of these different lines of credit. So you can see where things stand at the overall system level. And so we'll go ahead and hit get started. We're going to connect our wallet. We're going to do the browser wallet option, and we've got our MetaMask. And so I guess they technically have those two things set up slightly separately. So this is Sovryn.app. What we were just using previously was the alpha.sovryn.app. So do be advised, but that's fine. We can just connect this up. All right, so we are ready to open a line of credit. Now, I did pop that open and saw that there actually is a minimum collateral requirement of close to 800,000 sats. So I went ahead and added a little bit more, which you can do from this handy funding button here, or back where we were doing it with the portfolio area. You can always receive more that way. But again, you're able to go to funding, say receive, continue, and then get your address. So that is how you can top that up if you don't have enough. But let's go ahead and open a line of credit. And so we will see, we've got the collateral amount, the amount we want to borrow, and then a couple different pieces that we will discuss. So let's go ahead and max this out. Let's do basically all of our collateral. So about 1.4, 1.5 million sats or so. And it says, we need to be able to borrow at least 200 sovereign dollars. You can do sovereign dollars or ZUSD. Let's do sovereign dollars in this case. And so let's maybe do, 200 as the kind of minimum amount that we can borrow. Okay, so let's take a look at how this breaks down a bit. So there is an origination fee, as I alluded to in the earlier video, and that is actually 5%. That is certainly not trivial. One of the cool things you can do is Sovryn as an ecosystem has the SOV token. So that is the Sovryn token. Now, I know, I'm not encouraging you to go and speculate on some random token, but I think they've done this the right way. It's a governance token that earns you a portion of the origination fees, right? So if we went back over to our portfolio, here is what I'm referring to, the SOV token, and then you can stake that token and receive a portion of the Zero Protocol origination fees, basically a pro rata share of those fees. But that's one comment on the origination fee. Then you also have this liquidation reserve. This will basically enable your loan to be liquidated if you fall below the required collateral ratio. And so therefore I'm borrowing 200 sovereign dollars. I've got 10 that I will pay in the origination fee and 20 for the liquidation reserve. So the total debt is, in this case, 230. Now let's talk about the collateral ratio. There is an absolute bare minimum of 110%, but really a recommendation is probably to be over 150%. So why is that? There are a few interesting mechanics to be aware of for Zero. So obviously, number one, you need to be aware of these liquidation prices. So if the price of Bitcoin were to fall to, in this case, 17,000 US, my loan would get liquidated. And this happens automatically. There are bots that interact with the underlying smart contracts to liquidate you if you go underneath that collateral ratio. So it's important to make sure that you're above 110%. As we will see after we create and open this line of credit, you can always add more collateral to adjust that collateral ratio. So that's like the number one thing to be aware of. Then you should also be aware of an interesting mechanic around redemption. So for example, if the value of these stable coins temporarily falls below one actual US dollar, there's an incentive to redeem those stables into RBTC, which is this, by the way, don't get fooled when it's just, they display it as BTC, but it's RBTC. And so if the stablecoin value falls below $1, there's an incentive to redeem those stablecoins for RBTC, which is kind of like getting RBTC for a discount, which you can then sell at the higher USD price. And that is part of the mechanism that keeps the pegged value, right? You have arbitrageurs who are going to take advantage of that. But here's the thing, when someone redeems their stable coins, the RBTC that goes to the redeemer is allocated from the line of credit with the lowest collateral ratio, even if it's above the 110% minimum. So that's really interesting, right? Let me just pop out of that really quick. This gives you the rank ordered list of loans, right? These are the different lines of credit, and you can see the collateral ratios. So this one all the way down here has a collateral ratio of 138%. So this is not too far higher than the required, the absolute required 110%. But what this is basically saying is as participants redeem their stable coins for RBTC, the RBTC that goes to those redeemers is going to be allocated from this line of credit, even though it's above the 110%. So this is a mechanism to incentivize a healthy credit system. Even if you get part of your collateral taken in that way, your debt also will go down commensurately. So you still have the same net amount of debt. Nothing changes with your net amount of debt. So both your debt and your collateral would be reduced. But that is something to be aware of. And it's an interesting mechanic to, again, you can see a lot of people are like, I'm not going to be that guy. So 286, 286, 288, 300%. These are highly over collateralized lines of credit. So couple things to be aware of. Let's pop back into here. Let's do the max and let's do the 200 that we want to borrow. So, this is pretty good. 197% liquidation price, pretty low. As we saw in the previous screen, I'm not going to be the lowest, so I won't get sort of impacted by redemptions if they occur. And you can see, I understand my collateral may be liquidated or redeemed if applicable. You can learn more from their wiki. I would highly, highly recommend clicking this Learn More link and reading through the different risks associated with this. Just read through this page because this is a very, very good summation of all the things that are going on. And so let's come back. We understand the risk and let's go ahead and confirm. All right, and then we've got this estimated gas fee. These are the fees we're paying for the execution of the smart contract that is allowing us to open this line of credit. So we can go ahead and hit confirm. And here we go. So I've got my MetaMask wallet that pops up. It says here's an estimated gas fee. And so here is the total. And you can learn more, by the way, about these contracts. So I could click this and view it on a block explorer. And so let's go ahead and confirm. And there we go. So the line of credit is being opened. We can always take a look at the explorer here. And this is the RSK Explorer. So we can see the transaction is pending. Okay, and so there you go. So again, block times on RSK are, pretty quick. They're about 30 seconds or so. And so this has been successful. So now let's come back. And there we go. So we have got our line of credit and you can see some helpful suggestions. So it's like, well, you've taken out this line of credit. What are some of the things you can do? One of the things you can do is to set up email notifications if you want, which will give you alerts about the state of your line of credit. So this can be important, particularly if you're, playing it a little bit loose and fast and you're kind of low on the totem pole in terms of that collateralization rate. So that's something you can set up if you want. And there are a couple of different ways that you can now use your loan. One is something called the stability pool, which we'll discuss. And then you can also participate in the liquidity pools for the automated market maker. So let's go ahead and finish and we're going to talk about that. And so we can now see, there's my little line of credit. So I'm fourth in line for redemption. So, not a whole lot of buffer, but that's okay. We're not going to keep this particular one open. I should also mention that there is this concept of recovery mode. That is when the overall, this total collateral ratio falls below 150%. So the system-wide collateral ratio falls below 150%. The system enters what is called recovery mode. And that means that you could be liquidated for a collateral ratio of 150% or lower. So that's another thing to just keep in mind. Right now, the system is very well collateralized, as we can see, but that would just be another thing to keep your eye on. So that is pretty darn cool. If we reflect on what we've just done, we have trustlessly and permissionlessly borrowed a stablecoin using our Bitcoin as collateral. We put no KYC into this. There was no credit check. And that is the power of DeFi, right? Decentralized finance is a term that has been so bastardized by all the scams, all the rug pulls, all the shitcoinery that we've seen. But this is how it is done well. That's not to say any of this is purely riskless. That's not to say any of these smart contracts, for that matter, are perfect, but they're all open, they're all auditable. And so that is a very, very powerful thing. So now that we've done that, let's talk about what we can now actually do. So if we come up to the Earn tab, there is something called the Stability Pool. So what is the stability pool? The stability pool is the first line of defense for maintaining the solvency of the system. So basically what happens is when a line of credit is liquidated, the debt in that line of credit is being paid from the stability pool. So what basically happens is the debt gets canceled and the corresponding amount of stablecoin goes from the stability pool and is burned. Now, in exchange, the stability pool receives the entire collateral from that line of credit. So that's pretty neat. You can become a stability provider by contributing your stable coins to the stability pool. And then you would gain the pro rata share of the liquidated RBTC collateral. And you can see a sort of estimated reward rate quantified as an annual percentage yield. So that is nice. So again, we could say, hey, sure, let's contribute our 200 sovereign dollars. And so therefore we would receive 0.05% of any liquidated Bitcoin that occurs. And for those that might be newer to these different operations, you'll see that, when you hit confirm, you will once again get, the gas fee, right? So there are actual smart contract operations that are being executed whenever you do a step in this ecosystem. We can hit confirm. And then once again, we would get our wallet come up and ask, hey, is this fine? Or do you actually want to sign this, etc. Okay, so that is something you will consistently see. So that's the stability pool. You can also come over to this menu in the top left, and you can see there's a ton of different things we could do. We could swap between assets. We could spot trade, margin trade, right? A lot of this is for like traders, so not necessarily my use case. You've got the links for where you could stake and vote for different actions within the sovereign governance process. And so this was really the other big one, is earning yield in the AMM. And so again, we do kind of flip back and forth between the sovereign.app and the alpha.sovereign.app, but that is what it is. So let's connect our wallet again. Here we go. And so as you can see, there are these different liquidity pairs, right? There's the sovereign dollar to RBTC liquidity pair. There's a sovereign token to RBTC liquidity pair, and so on and so forth. So for those not familiar, this is what's called an AMM, or automated market maker. And what's happening here is you are posting your asset to serve as liquidity for when different market participants make a trade. Let's say I'm a user and I want to use my dollars to buy more Bitcoin. I could go to the trade tab and conduct that trade. But like, who's on the other side of my trade when this is all decentralized? Well, that's where the automated market making process comes in. And so some user who has posted RBTC to the liquidity pool, that is who would be on the other side of the trade. And so you can earn a yield for contributing liquidity as well. So we could hit deposit. I could say, hey, I want to contribute my max, all $200, and so on and so forth. So those are two big ways that you can earn a yield now that you've taken out this line of credit. And again, you can always come over, trade asset. So I want to maybe swap my dollars, I want to spend $100 and buy more Bitcoin, right? And I can do a swap, etc., etc. So there's a lot of different things you can do. I mainly wanted to focus today on the Zero Protocol. So again, we can come back to our little dashboard here. So again, to recap, you can use this to participate in different ways in which you can earn a yield on that amount. You can use it to buy more Bitcoin, and eventually I suspect we will see a fiat off-ramp where you can take this ZUSD or this DLLR and convert it into dollars into your actual bank account that you could then pay for whatever. I hope we'll also see, services like Bitrefill accept these Bitcoin-backed stablecoins, borrow against your Bitcoin, and then use the resulting borrowed amount to spend on actual goods and services, not without its risks, as we have discussed. And again, I would encourage you to read through all of Sovryn's great documentation. And then in closing, once you have a line of credit open, you can do a couple things. One, you can adjust it. So you could add collateral or withdraw collateral, which would of course adjust the collateral ratio. You can repay a portion of the debt, or if you wanted to, you could just close the loan outright. And so in some ways you might say, well, that is where debt gets you. Yes, it's pretty cool that the Zero Protocol has no interest. However, with that fairly chunky origination fee, you're paying for it somewhere. So I could always add more Bitcoin, swap that into dollars, and cover to close this full thing out. A couple different ways that I could do it. But there you have it. So again, not without its risks. but a very, very powerful ecosystem. And once again, I think a crucial ingredient for the path to hyper-Bitcoinization. If people can borrow against their Bitcoin in a trustless, permissionless way, if they can earn yield on that in various ways for rendering actual services, not just sort of a endless chain of rehypothecation you see with centralized solutions like what used to be Celsius, etc. I think that's a really, really important thing, even if none of this is your cup of tea. But with all that, let's go ahead and conclude today's video. All right, so there you have it. Today we took a hands-on look into the Sovryn ecosystem and specifically looked at the Zero Protocol. We took out a line of credit. We took a look at some of the different things that you can do with your stablecoins once you've borrowed against your Bitcoin. And don't get me wrong, this is all still very early, right? We're very early stages. You may have watched that and said, well, like, I don't know, all these like tokenomics and liquidity yield and all this. When can I borrow against my Bitcoin and use the resulting credit to buy real goods and services or finance a business that I want to start, right? All of these things. And I think we'll get there. Again, there's a company called Sovryn Financial, which is working on a sort of off-ramp that lets you take your Sovryn dollars and have them as real dollars in your bank account. So very cool to see. But I'm curious to hear, what are your thoughts? What do you think of Sovryn? Have you tried out any parts of the ecosystem? Are there related topics that you would like to see covered in future videos? Let me know in the description down below. But I hope you found this valuable and insightful. If you did, you already know what to do. Give this video a like. Use the share feature underneath this video. That really does help get this to a broader audience. And again, whether or not you're super into all the things that we covered today, I think it's still nonetheless a really important tool for people to have in their toolkit and for people to be aware of. And if you were so enamored with this content, you want to donate to a plug, which really does help me continue to make these videos, you can do so in a number of ways. You can use the super thanks feature built directly here into YouTube, although I would prefer sats if you're going to donate. If you happen to be using the Get Alby Lightning Wallet browser extension, you can just click that and it'll automatically detect that you're watching my channel. Or alternatively, I will have my Strike account and Lightning address on the final page momentarily. For now, we'll go ahead and leave things here. As a reminder, every sat counts, especially if you can borrow against it in a non-KYC permissionless way. But until next time, my friends, I'll see you then.